Greetings, this is Warrior King, and the time has come for the lions and the lioness to tell their own story. This is the lion's voice. Give thanks and praise for the wonderful blessing that's been poured on me. Give thanks and praise. Jah use as an instrument to set the people free. Jah give her the powers to chant. Jah give her the powers to chant. Ras Tafari, the lion's voice.
What are you waiting for? Come together, calling from near and far. Know who you are. What are you waiting for? Rally up, it takes the dose. What are you waiting for? Ancestors paved the way for us. Yes, I am Ketis Oyonde, asking, what are you waiting for to come together? The time has come for the lions to tell our own story. This is the lion's voice.
And then as I set forward into Atlanta, I forward there at 17. And I recall in my first week of being in Atlanta, I was sitting down somewhere, eating what I called my vegetarian plate at the time. And a brethren came up to I and was like, yes, I, Ras Tafari. You know, now the time there, I didn't know of the king. I just knew Rasta was one with locks and burned ganja. That's all, you know, that was what youth knew. I didn't know of His Imperial Majesty. So I'm looking at him, you know, and he looking at I, and he like, you see in the entail plate, the locks. So he just assumed that I knew of the culture of the liberty. And the brethren asked I, what's my name? I said, Ras, you know, Tre at the time. I said, what's your name? The brethren's name was Tree. Ras Tre, and he was from St. Louis. Okay. And the same connection I'm saying, if you follow the Mississippi River, Chicago and St. Louis are brother sister cities. St. Louis is the last stop before you reach Chicago. Okay. And so this was our first week in Atlanta, and through the brethren, within a month, I was introduced to the Nyabingi order. So, you know, I was captivated from the first time I attended Nyabingi, and was just like, what is this? You know, I never cited anything. And so the brethren began to give us some self-education, books on His Imperial Majesty. And from there, I never looked forward, never looked back, let me say.
The year is 1892, and the land of Ethiopia has been experiencing 4 years of terrible famine and drought. They call it the Kikuken, or the evil days. At least 1/3 of the human population and 90% of the cattle have died. The hyenas have feasted on so many carcasses that they have become overweight and barely able to move. Just when the people could take no more of the evil days, a woman named Wasiro Yeshimabet is giving birth in a place called Erjersa Gora. This is her 9th attempt to bring forth new life. Her previous 8 attempts only resulted in death. Will this child live? Thankfully, a healthy baby boy is born. His first cries are drowned by thunder and lightning flashes across the night sky. The heavens open up and torrential rain starts to fall. Ethiopia's drought is over, and the baby boy is given the name Tafari, meaning one to be feared or respected. Lich Tafari's father, Ras Makonnen, is a very important man in 1892 Ethiopia. Although he is overjoyed at the birth of his newborn son, he cannot spend much time with him. Ras Makonnen is the governor of Harar and must get back to the famous walled city to deal with its affairs. Furthermore, he is the foreign minister of Ethiopia, and having traveled to different places in Europe, he is very aware of the material and military advances they have made and the looming threats they pose to his country. Ras Makonnen knows that the majority of Ethiopians have no idea what is coming, and that he has to work that much harder to secure the realm. Lich Tafari would grow up to become the legendary emperor, Haile Selassie I. To understand his journey, we must first understand the Ethiopia that he was inheriting, and what it was like when he was born in 1892. Get your copy of Kwasi Bonsu's book, Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, and increase your knowledge about the history, politics, and culture of Ethiopia in 1892, and how it connects to the rest of African and world history at the time. Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1 is available for purchase at www.bookmanexpress.pub. Please visit for more information.
Family, make sure you check into when you come in. Let us know where you're watching from, so that we can share with the joy. You know, this thing is global. You know what I mean? Last strong we had a virgin from Dakar watching live. You know what I mean? So we're global. So just let us know where you're watching from. All right. So this brethren, as I said, is an award-winning filmmaker. You know what I mean? The product of a HBCU, same way. He burst onto the scene, you know, in the DVD era. For some of our younger viewers, they don't know about DVD when we had physical media. Viral, one of the first viral Pan-African video. There was a period when Pan-African videos were going viral, meaning that people would take the videos and bootleg them. And this brethren had one of those films documenting the Habesha Black to Our Roots program. Black to Our Roots, still a classic today. If you find it and you see it, still a classic, you know what I mean? But he's done a lot of other works. We're gonna find out his journey. We're gonna hear about the realities of you know, doing the work that he's done. The item know I have land in Ghana. This is the brethren who scouted the area that we bought the land in. You know what I mean? He was the one who said, yeah, right here is where, you know what I mean, we're gonna set in some roots. So brethren is really a pioneer, you know what I mean? And as I said, we're coming up on knowing the brethren 20 years. So I know, you know, from before him children born, they're big people now, you know what I mean? Them type of way there. So help I to welcome Lion Pride family. Give us some warmth and some strength to I and I brethren, Ras Tre. Welcome.
Yes, King. Yes, I give thanks for the royal greetings. You know, long time that I and I reason, and this reasoning is I first love and first joy. So give
Yes,
thanks.
sir.
Yeah. You know.
So you know, we have a tradition here on the Lion Talk live platform. We're gonna ask the eye to step into the iritical time machine and take us to the moment of their birth. You're a filmmaker. We want the cinematic version of the origin story of Ras Tre Subira. Where was the I born? What was it like growing up? And what was the I journey to Rastafari?
Give thanks. Give thanks. Perfect way to start it out. And I was born in Chicago, um, and you know, came up in a time when it was heavy gang activity. You know, I recall as a youth in high school having to navigate which streets I could travel, going home, and which gangs were fighting with which ones and what colors. It was a whole thing to navigate. And you know, as a youth, I was an athlete. Was into basketball and football, soccer. You know, those are the two sports that I played. And for I, you know, that was one of the things that kept I on a straight path. The second one was the culture. From young, the culture attracted me in a way where it captured my attention. This was very early stages. I didn't really know of Rastafari proper culture, Nyabingi, in those times there. But I was a youth who, for whatever reason, never liked to trim, you know. Um, and before I became even knowing of Rastafari liberty, I already had locks, and I never liked eating flesh from youth. From youth, you know, this was something that just I was just born that way. So I was, you know, pretty much I-town. You know, I was still dealing with the milk and cheese and them type of vibes. But when I came into Rastafari, I was already carrying a covenant, was already eating, Itown, and so it wasn't much of a, and always, carrying a red, black, and green, and those type of, those Iowas. It was the culture was strong. So I forwarded to Atlanta when I was 17.
Okay. So hold on. So you have no Caribbean in your family. You're up strictly from America. I want the
Yes,
people to realize,
yes, I,
the
and
story of the Africans from this soil that
yes, I.
I'm in, that site of the king.
Yeah, and let me add a little bit about Chicago. Chicago.
Yeah.
If you follow the Mississippi River, you know, it ends pretty much, coming to Chicago, and so most families in Chicago, black families, South Side, West Side, they're one or two generations removed from Mississippi, and that is I family roots, Mississippi deep back roots, a place called Dancing Rabbit Creek.
Okay.
That is where our grandmother was raised, and my parents were both raised there as well. And so, although Chicago was my roots, I have very much so kind of deep Southern Mississippi tradition blood flowing through I.
Okay.
And yes, it wasn't necessarily a place heavy with ones from the Caribbean, as the I say. So this wasn't something that and I had even access or exposure to. So I just see that as only through the Divine Majesty that I was already walking in a path that was very similar. As I said, I was already carrying covenant, and for whatever reason, I never liked eating flesh. And this was my upbringing. Um, and then as I set forward into Atlanta, I forward there at 17, and I recall in my first week of being in Atlanta, I was sitting down somewhere eating what I called my vegetarian plate at the time. And a brethren came up to I and was like, "Yes, I, Ras Tafari." Now the time there, I didn't know of the king. I just knew Rasta was one with locks and burned ganja. That's all, that was what youth knew. I didn't know
Yes.
of His Imperial Majesty. So I'm looking at him, and he looking at I, and he like, you see the ital plate, the locks. So he just assumed that I knew of the culture of the Livity. And the brethren asked I, what's my name? I said, Ras, Trey at the time. I said, what's your name? The brethren's name was Tree, Ras Tree. And he was from St. Louis. And the same
Okay.
connection I'm saying, if you follow the Mississippi River, Chicago and St. Louis are brother sister cities. St. Louis is the last stop before you reach Chicago.
Okay.
And so this was our first week in Atlanta. And through the brethren, within a month, I was introduced to the Nyabingi order. So, I was captivated from the first time I attended Nyabingi and was just like, what is this? I never cited anything. And so the brethren began to give us some self-education, books on His Imperial Majesty. And from there, I never looked forward, never looked back, let me say. And so, yeah, that is part of it. Oh, I see a one in the in the links too in the comments. Capoeira too. Yes, I.
Listen.
Capoeira was something I came into at that time in the Atlanta area. That really carried me deep into the culture, and I was blessed to get introduced to Rastafari and African culture, resistance culture, very soon. Very quickly. And I just took the baton and ran with it. So yeah, that's the
Yes.
history of the
Yes, I've dabbled in the capoeira. There's a whole group of rasses that deal with the capoeira vibe.
backside.
It's a serious meditation, upper body strength, full body control. You know what I mean? It looks a lot easier
Yes,
than
I.
it is when you start doing those things. You gotta be fit for the capoeira. So I respect
Yes, I.
to the capoeira. So um, what was the first, after you read these books on His Majesty, how did the eye sight up the divinity? What were the things that made the eye say, all right, you know, um, these people, these Nyabingi people, they're making sense.
Yeah, well, that time was a very special time, I feel, in the Nyabingi order, where you really had to seek it out, and it wasn't so just easily accessible. You had to really, be livicated and connect into the community, because this is before, again, cell phone age, right? So you had to have numbers and get to a phone, even try to call and want to see like when's the next gathering. I appreciate love that time now,
Yes.
considering what we're dealing with now, because everything is so abundantly at our fingertips. And you can just connect through a social media and ask a question. This was an eye where we had to go and sit up, you had to go and physically sit up in the elders and reason. And I were blessed in Atlanta at that time that, maybe many ones know of the album Ras Tafari Elders. Mama Bubbles and Bongo Headful, who were two of the elders on that album, were in Atlanta at that time. And so I had a very strong presence of elder leadership of Rastafari, and balanced through Mama Bubbles.
Yes,
it was a balanced community, and I was blessed to be a part of that as a young brethren. And from the first sip of Rastafari, I knew, this was the truth. This was the liberty that I already felt I was moving in that way. Because when I met Rastafari, I already had carried the covenant, and I was quote unquote vegetarian. So it wasn't much to cut out the dairy and whatnot. And so within, I want to say 3-4 months of being in Atlanta at age 17, I was in the Nyabingi order, really sipping, the iritical food that was being served at that time. And again, this was a time when you really had to search for it in a way that, we don't necessarily have to dig like that right now. Everything is just at the fingertips.
Did they have access to the selected speeches and the autobiography?
Yeah, so that was one of the first books that was given to I was the selected speeches, and then the autobiography by Harold Marcus. Those were like the first two books, if you will, literature of Rastafari I was introduced to. And Give Thanks, it started with the speeches, because it's one thing to read of the Divine Majesty, but to read the word sound, hear from the I directly. That was very profound for I, and it everything just clicked that this is the liberty for I. It wasn't even any second. It wasn't any doubt. And I was just forwards ever, backwards never. So that was the introduction, and it didn't take long, as I said before. And at that time, ones were heavy on, repatriation, even now. But even I just feel like the Iowa then was a special Iowa where you had to really seek out and put effort into connecting, the dots of repatriation. And so it didn't take long, and I was blessed to be on the soil.
This is culture sound, a Rastaman sound, positive sound.
Culture sound system with DJ Culture Fire TG.
And now you're in tune to the culture sound, Rasta sound.
Culture sound, because of DJ Culture Fire TG.
I help coming from the true living eyes, Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie the First, who created Zion and earth. He shall not suffer and I foot to be moved. I hold, he that keepeth Ethiopia shall neither slumber nor sleep. Well, youths in the streets right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. One bad police right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. No justice, no peace right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. The fire now cease right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. The youths them rise against brutality, man a kill another man for your salary. Them train them at the shooting gallery, black and loot, you might lose all your family. Them defend white supremacy, so them see the African as them enemy.
Yeah, I'm gonna say culture sound
Like this for centuries, them sick mentally. That's why we have you out in the streets right now. Riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. Bun bad police right now. Riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. No justice, no peace right now. Riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. The fire now cease right now. Riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. Them say them tired of the looting. I and I tired of them shooting. Ku Klux Klan they recruiting. Then them dress up in a blue suit and they're brutalizing our youths them. No court, they just execute them. Till the people start learn the truth and the black youths go strap on them Gideon boot and them out in the streets right now. Riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. Bun bad police right now. Riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. No justice, no peace right now. Riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. The fire now cease right now. Riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down.
Now
When
this
the
is
leaders
the
of the world
original
are feeling their responsibility to lead the youth them to a brighter future. Well, I hear the conquering line of the tribe of Judah, Earth's rightful ruler. I just play Ras Tafari crowd, unconquerable. We come to tell them about Babylon, they're falling down.
Alright, in a culture sound, you owe me a million, but give
We
it
come
down.
to tell them about the way Ras Tafari crowd, unconquerable. We come to tell them about Babylon, they're falling down. Tafari is uncle yo. We come to tell them about Holy Palace intrigue, infighting between Solomon seed. Well, Empress tied to want her family to lead. Well, King Michael wants his son King Michael. Now watch the orphan married to him niece, who get up every day and a study and a read.